Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or maybe it's morning for you, nighttime. Maybe you're clocking into the video as the sun is going down and the moon's howling up outside. Thank you so much for joining me here and for stopping on in as we dive into a full album reaction to Lunatic Soul. We're going to listen to the 7th studio album by Lunatic Soul that will be Through Shaded Woods. I don't know why I almost said wolves. Released in 2020. Like I said, 7th studio album. We're checking this one out because a couple of you had suggested this particular album, Masterpiece, MD Magnetic Dragon. I see that you guys had mentioned and suggested the album, so I appreciate that. Thank you. But ever since we had last listened to them with the track Gutter, I had just wanted to dive into a full album reaction of one of their albums. So I decided that this was going to be the one. there wasn't really too much reason. This is just the one I decided to choose. So that's what we're going to do here with the album. And, you know, with the history between myself and Lunatic Soul, I haven't heard anything from them except what I've done here on the channel, which hasn't been much. But I am familiar with Riverside, at least with two of their albums, of which I'm forgetting right now. Second, oh my god, with Conceiving You. It's been a long time since I've listened to Riverside, if I'm being honest. Conceiving You, that's coming off second. Isn't the abbreviation SLS second something? I don't remember now. And then I listened to like a little bit of Anno Domini, which was the album that came after, but I didn't listen to like the whole thing. I didn't get like fully into it. They've been a band that I like listened to a little bit long, and I mean like long time ago, like 10 years or so ago, probably more at this point, but I never just got fully into them, but I did enjoy what I heard. So I have all these wires here that are like messed up. So I'm excited to dive into this particular album. And I see, sorry, when I pull up the Wikipedia here, that regarding this album, Duda is the only one that's performing. He's handling everything. He's handling all the instruments, all the lyrics, everything. So this truly is going to be a one-man show. And I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys are as well. Of course, just to get the plugs out the way, if you don't mind. The Buy Me a Coffee's there. If you'd like to sponsor a song request of your own, the Patreon's over here. If you want to get access to exclusive content, and otherwise, right here on YouTube, press that like button. Helps a great deal. Sharing as well goes a long way. And of course, subscribing is that thing that most people will ask. Anyways, I don't know about you, but I'm excited to dive on into the album. I'm looking forward to this one. That's it. that's the intro. That's all I got for you. But let's see what Lunatic Soul has for us. Before we dive in, this drink of just plain old water, nothing fancy today, goes to you. And we're starting off with the first track, Navi. Aren't they from Avatar? And isn't that that little sprite character in Zelda? Here we go. Already kind of a Celtic influence there. Sounds like it'd be in Vikings. Yeah. It's like pagan Celtic kind of folk. Love that sound. Hey. Nice lightning there. I love how that melody lightened up for a moment. It's like the light shining through the trees. I mean, that sounds awesome. And it's so resounding. Starting off on the right track. Oh, nice rip. We are in for a really good time. Hopefully, if this track is the start of this album and with the quality that we're going for, this was a cool mix and a cool combination of Celtic music, kind of like going into this pagan folk music as well, with the drive of everything once it got going. The drums is like simple but powerful, especially amongst this big melody that is continuously floating through this track. I love the energy. I like the singing as well. There's a sort of ritualistic spirit as well, kind of being invoked in this particular track. It just and kind of going with the album title, it has a woodsy, foresty, natural kind of earthly energy to it. This was a really phenomenal start, and maybe because the previous tracks that I've listened to from Lunatic Soul and from Riverside, it doesn't sound like anything like those. Like, this is kind of an interesting direction, especially the Celtic influence in that melody there. And then I like how the power of the song, I would say melodically, comes from the guitar after or on top of that main riff with like this kind of droning sound. I don't know what instrument it is. It could, for all I know, just be keyboards, but it sounds like there's almost like this uilleann pipes, bagpipe-esque kind of sound that's happening at certain points throughout the song as well, which gives it a little bit of a wind, a little bit of a breath between its wings. This was just really good. And Duda sounds really fantastic in these vocals, which I see, at least lyrically, are credited as wordless vocals, but sometimes it sounded like he was saying far away and stuff like that. But I like the idea and the notion that even if there's no words involved, the vocals still provide a feeling. And maybe the feeling isn't directly made clear to us because there are no words to tell us what they mean. And yet, from the way he sings and from, of course, the atmosphere of which his vocals are involved in, you can kind of infer, maybe not direct meaning, but perhaps even more pure feeling. You can feel what he's saying. What is he actually saying? What does it mean? Who knows it? But in this particular case, it doesn't matter. You feel what he's saying. I just love the ritualistic, earthy kind of style of this track, and it really nicely built up. And I like how at certain moments, about twice in the song or in the track, like the darkness of the track kind of lightens up with a really beautiful light melody that kind of rises, like the chords begin to rise a little bit, and it kind of feels like the light coming through the trees before heading back into these shaded woods. And they're not dark woods, they're not nighttime woods, as the title says, they're shaded woods. So just a little bit of a shadow cast upon it, but not lost in complete darkness. Really excellent track. Really great beginning, and just a fantastic start to the album. There's nothing more to say about that. Not at all. So let us move forward into the next track, which is The Passage.
Trial has just begun, I know it. You're my destiny, the final story. Sound is running out, you're waiting for the other side.
Great guitar riff there.
Will I find you there when you close my eyes? Oh, my tangled road, I want it. Find the entrance and regain my memories.
Great sounds.
On my winding road, I stumble. I'm losing my faith, let myself wander.
I love how moving this is. Especially like this deep folk sound. And it just feels like this quiet adventure of solitude and meditation. Building up in this chant. And I like that little rattle shake. Oh. I didn't know it was going to get heavy like that. This is not only a literal passage, but symbolic. That guitar riff is hard. How that gave way. Thick bass. Such a metal riff, just so subdued. We're having a good time. Can you imagine taking a walk through some thick woods with this album being played, just wearing your headphones and just listening to this? You would feel both exhilarated, perhaps at times a little scary if the woods are just a little darker than you like, but probably a little bit also like euphoric listening to this. This is woodsy. I mean, obviously, right? With the album title. Okay. I like how the passage makes me think of like a literal passage going through something here through shaded woods. But this is deeply, deeply spiritual, I think, like music. And to me, it also regards just a symbolic passage, a movement or a change from one place or one state of being into kind of another. Like there's a change that happens. There's some sort of progression, I think, in kind of a mental, metaphysical, spiritual way, whatever way you want to take it. There's a change. And I love how we are taken through this passage musically. The beginning and the whole kind of opening area First of all, now we have, due to actually singing and we have lyrics here to take us along. I love his delivery. There's such a beautiful kind of naked folk delivery that's very, very earth toned in the way that he sings. And I like how his delivery, when he kind of speeds up at certain moments, really does have a very natural progressive folk kind of sound. And I think he sounds absolutely fantastic. His voice can go from both being the shaman to partaking as a worshiper in these woods. There's just different places that he goes, and he can be the narrator. He just has a great voice for this type of music, and I can't say enough good things about that, especially as his delivery kind of speeds up and slows down. The inclusion of that very, very, very heavy guitar coming in amongst the middle to kind of kick off the instrumental part of the passage was completely unexpected. I wasn't thinking at all that there was going to be anything of that nature here. No pun intended. But I also like how that guitar and that riff was obviously so heavy and so metal, but it's not like the song erupted into some blanket statement of heavy metal and, here comes the double bass, here comes the galloping bass line, here comes, the screaming vocals. It kept to its truth, it kept to its nature, and it didn't try to change that. And I really like that because the drums still had a big intensity in that straight euphoric, kind of trance-like movement, just bump, 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 while all the strings and the instruments danced around this fire. That was a really cool moment. I just really like how the music didn't change around that guitar riff in the way that perhaps you would expect. You would expect it to kind of jump into something metal, but it didn't. Let's go back to the beginning here, Near. This is gorgeous, mystifying, very lifting, and I love the playfulness in that riff there. There's almost something near Spanish influenced in the way that he plays guitar in that first part of that verse too as well. It's mostly, I think, the melody and slightly part of the way he strikes the chord, but he doesn't go into like a full flamenco. It's just a little influence there. But I like how at the end of his lines, he leaves a little gap for the instrumental piece to, he can kind of fill in with the guitar or whatever he's doing there. And that's just a nice pattern to kind of set things up. But let me skip ahead here. Here we get those more wordless vocals, a little invocation. Where's that guitar? There. That's nasty. That's a nasty guitar. And I mean, it is so thick and heavy. I'm waiting for the drums to. I don't know what in the Meshuggah I'm doing. I'm waiting for them to go off and for the whole track to change around it, but it never does. It just increases the intensity, increases the burn, really from kind of the moment go. And it just goes on from there in such a wonderful way. And I like how when the guitar leaves eventually, we're still left with the heaviness, but now that weight is gone and we're kind of feeling a little bit lighter. So it kind of acts as, once again, a nice progression as there's a beginning with this track, like there's a journey, right? The beginning sounds good. It's wandering. There's a beautiful kind of adventure and a sense of that adventure. Then we get into conflict, especially when that guitar comes in and the drums and everything else is becoming heavy. It's like it's weighted. But then when that's removed, all of a sudden there's that resolution, that peace that follows after that conflict. And I think that the actual journey musically in this passage is incredibly well done. The trial has just begun. I know it. You're my destiny. The final story. Sand is running out. You're waiting far on the other side. In the forest in the dark, will I find you there when you close my eyes? When you close my eyes. On my tangled road, I want it. Find the entrance and regain my memories. I'm thinking out loud. Passing former gods turned into trees. Am I in the real life or am I in the realm of make-believe? So, like I said, this passage, this is not a literal passage, although some of the words describe a literal passage. This is kind of, in this sense, it looks like kind of going back in his mind and retracing certain footsteps. And I like the idea of kind of going back in time in his mind. And will he find this particular person there as he goes back? If I pray, will you help me to get out? If I pray, will you help me to become? I like that. To become what? Who knows? But do we need a direct answer? It's just to become. Need to find a passage to the light. On my winding road, I stumble. I'm losing my faith. Let myself wander. I keep going on while you're waiting far on the other side. It is getting cold and dark. Will I find you there when you close my eyes? What? Well, you know what? Could be his death. Will I find you there when you close my eyes? Like when in movies and such, when someone dies and their eyes are open, they close their eyes. Could this be the passage? He ends and keeps on repeating to find that passage to the light to revive. So maybe this is a going towards the light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing, or a light at the end of this particular passage. Makes sense in a few ways. Let's go ahead and move into the next track, which is the title track, Through Shaded Woods. So really nice melting of that heavy guitar, and then something light, more melodic. Once again, a little Celtic influence here. This sounds so much like a part of the Vikings soundtrack. The distorted guitar is more just an extra drive to push rather than becoming the focus. Okay. Interesting.
Whispers and voices. And my starving truth.
What an interesting vocal effect.
I thought I had it covered. I thought I had it done. Shaded
That's really interesting. Even with these vocals, there's interesting kind of undertone. Those are some crunchy leaves. I like how we got a little taste of actually walking through the woods and kind of taking a hike and a walk alongside with Duda. So this one, I would say that that's. Let me start over. Press the restart button on the Sega Genesis. I would say that at this point, this acts as the most experimental track on the album thus far, with this very, very, very interesting vocal effect that I can't tell you off of a first listen if I liked it or not, but it definitely gets your attention. This kind of warbly, in and out, shaky effect that almost sounds very watery and kind of submerged is really interesting and very interesting to use in the track. Like I really don't have a clue if I like it or not. My first reaction is confusion, to be honest. But it is really interesting. I will give it that. And it makes for a really cool moment when the music clears up and we get that moment of clarity with Duda as he's playing the bass, of course. And it's a really cool moment of serenity and tranquility, kind of away from all of the distractions, of which I kind of feel like that vocal passage is, and almost acts thematically as a distraction, and kind of allows us to just focus on ourselves, the respite of music, and the woods, and just meditate, in a sense, in that moment before we move back into it. Of course, you still have that very ritualistic drum that just pounds away. And I think it was really interesting when the drum that we hear kind of changes into something more electronic. The actual drum changes there. And we have that little synth or key that kind of rides through it a little bit. The guitar comes back, that heavy guitar. So it's really interesting how this track moves in a lot of different spaces and it's continually changing back and forth. And even in the beginning, and of course we return to it later, we have another, I would say, Celtic-inspired riff as well. So this one feels like a pinwheel. This one feels like a pinwheel that you blew it and it's just spinning with different colors round and round in a cyclical way, and you're kind of getting a little of everything on this track, you know? Let me pull it back here to the beginning because, like I said, it really feels like kind of the beginning of Navi and kind of that Celtic feel. Almost feels like a Celtic metal kind of sound. Who was that? Was that Celtic metal band? Was it Teresa's that I'm thinking of? It's been a long time since I listened to anything like that. I can't remember if that's what I'm thinking of. But anyways, it's a great setup. This vocal sound as pure and honest as ever here. I like that drony kind of vocal that comes through. Almost like a Gregorian chant, but in a different kind of ritualistic way. And if I didn't have the lyrics up, I wouldn't be able to understand exactly what he's saying. There's that electronic drum change. Yeah, this, like, on one hand, it's cool. I just don't know if I like it. I wonder how he came across that effect and I wonder how he came up with doing that. Was he experimenting perhaps with some vocal pads or some changes, electronics? Like, I wonder how he came up with that. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but like how he decided to include that into this song, how he fit in there. Where was his mindset in doing that? Because it's so unusual, it just stands out. And I don't know. It just sticks out to me in more than just the obvious, like it sounds, you know, difference in the music. That was interesting. But where's that? You see, there's that little synth that just rides through. This felt like this felt like tripping in the woods. Through tripping woods. Eyes on every corner. Yeah, there's a little bit of a paranoia kind of feeling here too. Eyes on every corner, shine among the woods, whispers and voices in my starving truth. I thought I had it covered, I thought I had it down. Warm breath of fear. Lycanthropic smile. Becoming a werewolf here? Run through your shaded woods, one through your shaded mind. Kind of like the previous track, you know, perhaps the shaded woods are that passage. And of course, you know, the shaded mind. Run through the night, run away through the darkness. Eyes on every corner, shining in the dark. Oh, what was that book I read? I think it was The Fisherman. It was The Fisherman that I read. It's kind of a horror, cosmic horror book. And at one point, they're kind of in a woods, and there's some beings in in the woods with them. I won't describe them, but okay. So I don't know if this is a concept album or not. These two tracks, this and the previous, definitely have, I would say, a thematic connection with the passage of your mind and going back through your mind, and here, of course, running through your shaded mind. So I think that there's a bit of a connection. And the wolves are apparently hiding in the dark, waiting for you to trip, and they're coming to get you. Let's move on to the next track here, which is Sweet, Sweet Oblivion. It's just called Oblivion, but I decided this. Oh no, those are some drums. He's kind of really invoking that Celtic spirit throughout. I like that. I love that melody that he sung. Kind of ghostly way that he did it. That was really nice.
I've come this far and still remember, even though I would like to forget consequences of my choice caught up to me.
Oh yeah.
As the prophecy fulfilled, I am nothingness, nothing around me. Nothingness, nothing around me. It returns over and over. I still have the taste that's on my lips.
This is my favorite.
River of forgetfulness. Let me sow
I love that swing in his voice, that stress, unstress.
silently falling into your breath. Let me pretend I am born
This melody he sings, I love. So singable. Oblivion is my favorite track on the album at this particular point. I think that that is just perfect. And if this was like if any tracks so far were up for single material, I think that Oblivion is it. The haunting melody that he sings, oh, like that whole thing, I think is gorgeously catchy. It is beautifully haunting. It is inviting. It's warm. And I just think it works so well. It kind of acts as a chorus in a sense. You know, it's very catchy as a lead vocal part. The way that he sings, that stress and unstressed swing that he sings in, is also very comforting to listen to. And I like how we kind of get a, for lack of a better word, a full, pure, untouched with, unmessed with focus on his vocal here because he's a great singer and I really like his voice. And I like how here it's just left in a very pure way, but he's singing more like, you know, in a typical song kind of fashion. Obviously, he's sung before in the other songs, but like this one seems a little bit more of a straightforward compositionally. And I think that he excels in this particular state as well. And especially at this point in the album, we've gone through the journey. We've had a lot of not quality, but a lot of genre ups and downs and changes and progressions. And we kind of, you know, done a lot of different things. And it's kind of cool to find ourselves at this kind of rest in a sense here. The drums, I really like the pattern. You have a little bit more of an active drum rhythm section that's happening here, which I really like. I think it's, once again, catchy. You have the Celtic influence from the very beginning. Once again, like, I think that this is just a perfect track on the album and my favorite one at this particular moment. I love that swing that he sings in on this one. This is a good one. And still just as powerful, too. See? Stress. Unstress. Like and there's a strength to the way he sings. And can I tell you, I was listening to the album and I was thinking in my head, like, the album is reminding me of another band and I couldn't quite think of who it was, but I'm now getting who I was thinking of. I'm thinking of Leprous, but if you were to take Leprous and kind of put them in a forest, then I think that, you know, you strip them down a little bit. This is kind of close to perhaps what you'd get. I've come this far and still remember, even though I would like to forget. Consequences of my choice caught up to me. As the prophecy fulfilled, I yearn. So he's still, you know, once again, we're taking this symbolic journey through shaded woods through his mind. And he's gotten to a certain point and he's, you know, he's like, he would like to forget perhaps some of the painful memories that he's come across. And yet, he has to move forward. Nothingness, nothing around me. Nothingness, nothing around me. It returns over and over. I still have the taste of salt on my lips. Oh, my Leth, river of forgetfulness, let me soothe my soul, erase my sins. I'm silently drowning among your tears, silently falling into your grief. Repeats that and then says, silently falling into your breath. Let me pretend I'm born again. So there is a sense of, I suppose, rebirth happening here. First, he says, silently falling into your grief. Then, silently falling into your breath of life. So you have to go through the gates of oblivion, if you want to take Elder Scrolls into it, to kind of, you know, find your path to rebirth. And once again, I don't think that this is literal or physical, but a mental journey, a spiritual journey, whatever metaphysical kind of journey you'd like to invoke here. Let us move on into the next track, which is also the longest track here on the album at near 10 minutes rather. It's going to be summoning dance. What are we summoning? Who are we summoning? Perhaps we're summoning our protagonist back to reality. Up there goes gravity.
Most of the road I traveled alone is now far behind. I have an opportunity to believe and to revive. So why do I feel like I already failed? 3 stones on the right side, 3 stones on the left. I had to keep starting over from scratch, put that to rest. I didn't like myself and what I'd become, and I was tired.
I love the rest that's happening.
3 stones on the right side, 3 stones on the left. My vicious circle of life and death. Oh, you want it, I hear it again.
This is that hopeful resolve.
You wanted my burden curse to break, but I don't know if I'm capable anymore of learning what it's like to feel. On the other side of my dream, I will try to wake up and to believe.
I like that piano touch at the end of the tail.
Most of my afterlife I have spent trying to solve.
This is a really beautiful song in how also inspiring and strong it feels.
The diagram I forgot I'd made up when it all had begun. So why do I feel like I already failed? 3 stones on the right side, 3 stones on the left. Oh,
It's like it takes flight.
I hear it again. Oh, you wanted my burden cast to break, but I don't know if I'm capable anymore of learning what it's like to feel. On the other side of my dream, I will try to wake up and to believe. I don't know if I will be able to love if I cannot find you there. Suddenly now, just break my curse.
This is like that happy ending.
That dance begins.
He meets a life. And there's the dance. Oh. Kind of a return to the previous track there. And it sounds like a bringing to life, like a summoning. It's really cool how that worked out there. stomping my foot. I can't help it. That's really cool how this feels like this rising. That's a fast riff. It's a strong riff in this section. He's getting some guitar play.
You have to stop in the middle of life and live in the current of lives. Whenever you were pulling away from yourself, they made you believe it's okay, forced you to stand still, stop moving, vegetate. But you always wanted to dance. You always wanted to dance. You always wanted to dance.
See, the guitar has this victorious kind of anthemic sound now. It's broken through. Keyboard strings there. You know, I've never been to a drum circle, but this is the type of music that makes you want to go to a drum circle. You just grab a drum, grab a trash can, even just start banging along with it and groove to the beat, and just stomp your feet along with everything. This is and feels like the resolution of everything. If Oblivion kind of felt like this climax, and I would even say through Shaded Woods as well, Summoning Dance felt like the moment of breaking through to the other side, of victory, of freedom, of struggle, but eventual success as well. And I think that, first of all, the emotion is deeply, deeply captured. Duda's singing is really, really fantastic. There's a lightness that he sings with in like a slightly higher range here, still keeping it, the power level, still keeping it under 9,000. But like he still lightens the mood really nicely here, and kind of giving us a sense of peace, acceptance, and perhaps time to move forward and kind of get towards the ending of this journey. And I just really like the way that he emotes that. Then the music itself, right? It's called the Summoning Dance. So you're expecting dance. You're expecting summoning in a certain respect. And I like how, as we go through the emotions of, bringing to life and rebirth, on the second half of this, when the drums come back, we get that electronic drum that comes back again. We have the guitar riff as well, kind of a nod, I would say, to the previous tracks. And the way that moves forward, that acts as that summoning dance. Even lyrically, he does say, "Summon me now, just break my curse, the dance begins." And that's when we have that longer instrumental passage of just the drums and this strong invoking and summoning. And I think that that's really cool how that's done. This, and once again, the Celtic influence is there, but I couldn't help but think like of Kate Bush's Jig of Life and Summoning Dance. This is kind of literally and metaphorically a jig of life in many ways as well. But what a cool track in the way that it kind of acts as also the summation of the journey and kind of what we've gone through and how we got here, which I thought was really, really fantastic. And that middle break was nice as well. Let me pull it back here real quick. I also love how soft and dreamy it sounds, because this first part where it's, deeply acoustic, that acts as, to me, the acceptance. This is basically before taking that final step into the ending of this journey. This is that final moment of strength, that vulnerability, acceptance, and saying, okay, I'm going to do this, whatever this might end up being in this journey. And then we move forward. But I really like how dreamy and beautiful that sounded there. It's not very long before we get a nice little string of piano, but then it drops off. And that's when we're in the dance. And it's a transition for sure between, this and this. It's a transition for sure. But can I tell you? He made it work. It's a shift, but I think it works, especially in context, because it really does act as that final, let's do it. And then it kicks into the finale. I know we have one more song left, but like it kicks into the finale of this particular song and what I feel is perhaps the climax of the album. And I love the strings that come through, which I believe are probably going to be keyboard based in here. Guitar is soaring and anthemic. It's just a really strong feel-good track that really perfectly captures the idea of, this summoning dance and crossing that last threshold. Most of the road I traveled alone is now far behind. I have an opportunity to believe and to revive. So why do I feel like I already failed? 3 stones on the right side, 3 stones on the left. Could these be gravestones? I had to keep starting over from scratch, put that to rest. I didn't like myself and what I'd become. I was so tired. 3 stones on the right, on the left as well. My vicious circle of life and death. Oh, you want it, I hear it again. Oh, you want it, my burden, cursed to break. I don't know if I'm capable anymore of learning what it's like to feel. On the other side of my dream, I will try to wake up and to believe, right? He's crossing to the other side of his dream there in this journey. Just break my curse. Most of my afterlife I have spent trying to solve the diagram I forgot I'd made up when it all had begun. So he says most of my afterlife. So this is him, perhaps it seems like it in the story, he's already dead. And this is kind of him going back in his mind then. So why do I feel like I already failed? Well, I mean, I'm assuming because you're dead, man. Repeats this again. I don't know if I'll be able to love if I cannot find you there. Summon me now. Just break my curse. The dance begins. So he is a spirit. This is how I'm viewing this whole thing then. He's dead. He is in the afterlife chilling. He gets summoned for whatever reason. And so he's kind of going back in time. And maybe not literally back in time, but he's being materialized perhaps back to Earth for whoever's summoning him or something. And so he's kind of going through his life. I don't know. You had to stop in the middle of life and live in a cavern of lies. Whenever you were pulling away from yourself, they made you believe it's okay. Forced you to stand still, stop moving, to vegetate. But you always wanted to dance. You always wanted to dance. Okay. Here's my interpretation of not only this track, but the album so far. This is my story. It may not be right. It may have nothing. It may not even be close. But here's what I'm kind of hearing. This is almost like, remember Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg? I feel like this is kind of like Ghost. Him, Patrick Swayze, dead. Life cut short in the middle, okay? Accident, disease, something happened, he died. Someone, we're not told who, but someone is grieving. They're still alive. Could be his partner, a family member, who knows? But someone's grieving and stuck. As he says, you've been put in a cavern of lies. Perhaps the people are telling you, I don't know. He says forced to stand still, to vegetate, but you always wanted to dance. Like, you're not able to move past. You're not able to properly grieve and move on. Something's holding you back. Perhaps you need closure. And so, once again, maybe not literally, but whatever. Just follow me here. They're summoning, kind of like a seance. They're summoning his spirit, perhaps invoking him, and he will appear before this other person, and maybe they can have like a last conversation, and then maybe this other person can move on, and then his spirit can move on, and then like Dream Theater says, the spirit carries on. Like I may be completely off, but I'm going to tell you what, that's how I interpret this. That's how I'm hearing this. But I could be way off. I don't know. That's just how I'm hearing it. Okay, let's move on to the final track here on the album, which is The Fountain. Here we go.
On the side of awakening, I no longer wait for you to come. Not this time, maybe later. In the navy blue world, summertime, a perfect moment. I will give myself another try.
I like the piano guitar combo here.
Some rays break through the branches, ancient sacrifice. Silence breaks apart.
See, this is hope and moving forward.
Brightness comes to life. Stream of sounds wash away the darkness from my soul.
It's really cool. sound that kind of worked its way in here. It's just a beautiful way to end. Yeah. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Through Shaded Woods, Lunatic Soul, full album reaction completes. And The Fountain is a lovely way to end the album. Gone are the drums and the heavy guitars, heavy bass. Leave it alone. This is one that's strictly for vocal, guitar, and some piano in here. And there seems to be a little extra, little sprinkled in there in the ambience of it all. But that's the main groove of this thing. And I love how stripped down it is, how bare it is. And like I said, if the previous track, Summoning Dance, really felt like to me the mountaintop, this was actually, you know what? Summoning Dance acted as getting to the mountaintop and then coming back down. We're at base camp. We're done. We're home. We're home, wherever that is in relation to this particular journey. And I love how vulnerable it is. And this is that very emotional, stripped back kind of track. And I really like this for an ending as well. With an album that started off and continued throughout its runtime so strong with so many different textures and the drums beating and, the dancing and, all these different riffs. Like with an album so strong throughout, I like how we end with a little bit of softness, with a little bit of a final and exhale here to breathe easy, to relax. And I think that, I'm not trying to be punny, it's good for the soul, for perhaps not only our protagonist or, the story that's happening, but it just ends the album in a really soothing way that feels like stepping into some cool water on a hot day. It just ends things, I think, perfectly. On this side of awakening, I no longer wait for you to come. Not this time, maybe later, in a navy blue world. Summertime, a perfect moment. I will give myself another try. Sun rays break through the branches, ancient sacrifice. Silent breaks apart, brightness comes to life. Stream of sounds wash away the darkness from my soul. So goodbye, we part our ways. It's the point of no return, my love. I've crossed this bridge, maybe 7 times, but only now I feel calm. So only now there's a closure. Now, why has this person crossed this bridge 7 times? I feel like there's meaning to that. Silence breaks apart, brightness comes to life. Stream of sounds wash away the darkness from my soul. You know I'll return, but this won't change my faith. But for now, wash away the darkness from my heart. As like his spirit is cleansed, he's been reborn. But he also says, like, even though I'll return, it's not going to change my faith. It's kind of interesting. I feel like there's some nuance to this album when it comes to it lyrically. Let's look at some of the information here. Finally, let's go ahead and dive into some of the backing context. The album was described by Duda as more folky than previous releases, with more influence from Scandinavian Slavic folk and fewer electronic elements. In Poland, it peaked at number 5 on All IS. Duda composed all songs, and for the first time in Lunatic Soul's history, played all the instruments on the album. Maintains the melancholy and darkness characteristic of his music, but this time he focuses also on light and hope. Absolutely, especially with the final 2 tracks. There's less electronics on the album. The release is based on organic sounds of acoustic and electric guitars, bass, and keyboard instruments. The songs contain the use of various sounds inscribed in folk whispered choirs, pulsating rhythmic drums, or delicate keyboards. It goes on from there. As the portal Rock Sir Wiss FM stated, in this difficult time of COVID-19, full of challenges and anxiety during the pandemic, Duda has invited us on a walk into the forest to seek harmony, peace, and to forget, even for a moment, about the depressing everyday life. See some light in the trees. Well, like I said, my favorite track is Oblivion. There's definitely no question about that. I just think that that's, to me, a perfect track on the album and hits everything that I really like. This was a fun listen. It's a short album in going through it all, but it's a tight one. I feel like he says all that he wants to say, puts down everything he wants to put down. It doesn't feel like a note wasted or a note extra. It just feels like it's there. It says what it wants to say, and then it gets out of there. And I think that this was a really, really fantastic one and a really fun album to listen to as well. I hope that you guys enjoyed going through it with me. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. As always, I appreciate you being here and watching. Press the like button if you don't mind before you head out, before you go on with the rest of your day. Take a walk through the woods listening to this and let me know what you think, because I bet that if not the whole album, every track can give you a different feeling if you're going to go out on a hike. I feel like you'll get something out of it. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. As always, I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you all next time. Thanks again, guys. Bye.